a man suddenly discovers a large hole in his window. Curious, he leans in to inspect it, but in the next second, a white light flashed and he felt a little coldness in his wrist. So he looked down to see. Killing someone with superpowers is 1,000 times more effective than using a sniper rifle, and this drilling superpower is unique to the Morakami clan. It's said that hundreds of years ago, the Morakami clan fought to protect Maragami, with 10 warriors facing off against an army of 3,000. Everyone thought they were doomed, but as a flash of white light passed, the soldiers surrounding the enemy commander suddenly collapsed. Their deaths were strange. Some had lost their eyes, some their noses and mouths, and others had their kneecaps pierced through. The enemy commander was so terrified he couldn't utter a single word. Corpses littered the ground around him, but the Morakami clan stood unharmed. This battle cemented the legendary status of the Morakami clan. Sadly, a few hundred years later, people had forgotten this clan. Even the descendants of the Morakami clan had no idea of their true identity. Namaru has the ability to pierce through objects, but he treats it as nothing more than a simple trick. Other than occasionally showing off to his classmates, the ability has no real use to him. Now in his senior year of college, Namaru's top priority is finding a job. But one day, his professor, Sayuri, asks Namaru for help in finding a missing professor, Masami, who is also a descendant of the Morakami clan. Masami had been researching his family tree and, not long ago, discovered that Namaru was one of his kin. Masami then ventured alone to Morakami village to investigate, hoping to uncover all the secrets of the clan. However, Masami never returned. Concerned for his safety, Sayuri approaches Namaru for help. Until today, Namaru had no idea his ancestors belonged to the Morakami clan. When he was younger, Namaru's grandfather taught him how to practice his powers, but never explained where the abilities came from. Over the years, the only person in the family who knew about their origins was Namaru's father, but because his father didn't inherit his grandfather's powers, he knew nothing about the clan's history. Namaru tells Sayuri he won't be much help, but Sayuri insists they go to Mount Morakami to investigate. Before he went missing, Masami had been obsessed with the Morakami clan. Masami had uncovered that the Morakami clan had defeated an army of 3,000 with just 10 warriors, but history had never recorded how the battle was won. After Masami's disappearance, his wife came to the school several times to see Sayuri. She even provided some useful clues. The hole in the cup was likely Masami's doing. Masami and Namaru belong to the same clan, but their abilities are worlds apart. If there's someone in Morakami village who possesses even greater power than Masami, then Masami's chances of survival are grim. Sayuri doesn't dare take her student to search for Masami alone, so she pleads with Namaru to accompany her. Just as they're preparing to leave, a bizarre case makes the news. In the town beneath Mount Morakami, the president of a construction company was found mysteriously dead in his office. His hand was severed, and his head had a round hole carved out of it. There were no signs of a struggle, nor any evidence of forced entry at the crime scene. This baffling murder left the police completely stumped, but as soon as Namaru and the others saw the report, they immediately guessed the culprit. It had to be a descendant of the Morakami clan, and this person's power was likely even stronger than Masami's. Namaru could no longer stand idly by. He decided to go with Sayuri to Mount Morakami, but he didn't know that the Morakami clan rejects outsiders. When enemy forces invaded long ago, Maragami himself knocked the enemy commander off his horse. This is Japan's most mysterious place, Mount Morakami. It's said that the Morakami clan possesses the ability to create holes with their powers, allowing them to kill from miles away. Namaru is a descendant of the Morakami clan, but this is his first time stepping foot on this mysterious land. At a museum beneath Mount Morakami, he sees a painting. The magpie banner in the painting is a treasured artifact passed down through the Morakami family for generations. One magpie, one hand. It seems to contain some kind of terrifying energy, but Namaru is here to find the missing Masami, so he doesn't have time to explore the origins of his ancestors' mysterious powers. They go around town with Masami's photo, asking the locals if anyone recognizes him. When no one seems to know Masami, they head into a restaurant for something to eat. The waitress, Sachiko, is very beautiful, but Namaru can't stop staring at her, not because of her looks, but because she gives him a unique feeling, one that only happens when he sees a member of his clan. Could Sachiko also be part of the Morakami clan? As Namaru ponders this, Sato overhears some people in the restaurant talking about the lord and a teacher. Thinking they might have seen Masami, he quickly goes over to ask. A moment ago, these people were indifferent, but the instant they heard Namaru's last name, their expressions changed. They all rushed to greet him, eagerly offering to buy him food. It turns out that in their shrine rituals, the name Namaru signifies the Lord, so they hold Namaru in great respect. Upon hearing of Namaru's arrival, the town council members personally come to meet him, saying they want to throw a welcome banquet in his honor. Sayuri takes the opportunity to mention they're looking for Masami, and without hesitation, the council agrees to help. At the banquet, Namaru is seated in the place of honor. An elderly woman kneels down to pour him wine. It wasn't until he raised his cup that everyone else began to drink and eat. During the meal, someone came to toast him and asked if he had inherited that thing. The moment the villagers heard this, they fell silent, as if Namaru's answer was of the utmost importance. Just then, detectives from the county arrived to investigate. A few days ago, the president of a construction company was found dead in this town, with no weapon or signs of forced entry at the crime scene. If Namaru's superpowers were exposed, the detectives would easily suspect him of the murder. The villagers realized this too, so they all banded together to hide the truth. The councilman then stepped in and drove the detectives away, temporarily defusing the crisis. The next day, Namaru followed Sayuri into Mount Morakami. When the councilman found out, they tried to stop them, but as soon as Namaru spoke, they immediately backed off. There was a strange tolerance and respect for Namaru that left him feeling puzzled. On the mountain, there were 7 large stones. Sayuri speculated that they might be related to the Tanabata festival. The villagers of Morakami village hold a memorial event during Tanabata. Could Masami appear then, on that day of the festival? After coming down from the mountain, Sachiko approached Namaru. She asked him if he was one of the reachable ones. Namaru was confused at first, but quickly realized that Sachiko might be referring to superpowers, so he gave her a demonstration on the spot. Even though the hole Namaru made was small, it still shocked Sachiko. Sachiko said that Namaru truly was one of the reachable ones. Namaru asked Sachiko what she meant, but she wasn't planning on answering, because Sachiko had a brother named Tekashi. Sachiko didn't get along well with her brother, so she was very afraid that Tekashi would find out about Namaru's existence. On the day of the shrine ritual, Sachiko privately met with Namaru to talk. She explained that within the Murakami clan, sometimes gifted people are born. One type is the reachable ones, the other type is the window openers. There are only 5 reachable ones, including Namaru, but only someone who is both a reachable one and a window opener can serve as the priest of Mount Murakami. Sachiko is a window opener. At times, she has prophetic nightmares, but unlike Namaru, she doesn't possess superpowers. The reason the villagers respect Namaru is because his ancestors were descendants of Murakami. 100 years ago, Murakami gave one of his children to Namaru's family to be raised as a foster child. From then on, the children of Namaru's family became the descendants of Murakami. Sachiko told Namaru many things, but she didn't reveal what a true superpower wielder was like. Sachiko's brother Tekashi is also one of the reachable ones. His abilities are far stronger than Namaru's, and the gem-like object on his head must never be seen. If anyone discovers it, Tekashi will use his powers to eliminate them. Namaru saw a news article in the paper reporting that the villagers of Murakami village were strongly opposed to outsiders. They even held protests, trying to drive away those exploring the mountain. This made Namaru think of Sayuri, who had gone up the mountain without permission. Tonight, Sayuri and Sato had gone to Mount Murakami. If the villagers discovered them, what fate would await them? Sayuri was looking for the missing Masami, suspecting that these strange villagers were hiding him. As they climbed the mountain, they saw the villagers holding torches and performing some kind of ritual. A flash of white light appeared, and one of the 7 stones on the ground vanished. Sayuri continued following them deeper into the mountain, but before she knew it, they had been spotted. Fortunately, the villagers didn't harm Sayuri. Once they learned that Sayuri was only there to find Masami, they quickly explained that it was all a misunderstanding. They were performing a sacred ritual for the god of Mount Murakami and had attacked Sayuri's students out of fear that he might disrupt the ceremony. After the scare, Sayuri no longer dared to let Namaru and the others stay here. She always felt that there was something wrong with the villagers, and she had a feeling that something would happen if she continued to investigate. She had a nagging feeling that something wasn't right with the villagers, and she had a premonition that continuing the investigation would only lead to trouble. So, Sayuri asked Namaru and the others to return to school, while she stayed behind to investigate further. Before leaving, Namaru exchanged contact information with Sachiko, happily thinking he could stay in touch with her anytime. Little did he know, Sachiko's brother Tekashi was already searching for him. Tekashi had tracked down Namaru's name and address at the inn where he was staying and headed to Namaru's school to find him. When Namaru demonstrated his superpower, Tekashi was disappointed to see he could only create a small hole. Tekashi told Namaru that there was no need to shout when using his powers, he just needed to focus on the air. Tekashi explained that this ball was the so-called window. Only those who could create this ball were worthy of being called reachable ones. Although Namaru had inherited his ancestors' abilities, he was still far from being a reachable one. He would need to learn from Tekashi how to create such a black sphere. Any object that touched the black sphere would be destroyed. That was its true power. Tekashi said that while normal people have 5 fingers, those like them have a 6th finger, and it's this extra finger that allows them to form the black sphere. Namaru's black sphere grew larger and larger, even surpassing the one Tekashi had just made. Tekashi was thrilled. He brought over a bucket to test it, and as soon as the bucket touched the black sphere, it was instantly pierced by it. Tekashi was ecstatic. Namaru, being a true descendant of Murakami, had surpassed even someone who had been practicing for decades after just a little guidance. Both Namaru and Tekashi were pleased, but they didn't realize that Namaru's classmate, Tomoko, had witnessed the whole thing. After returning, Namaru kept thinking about the power of the black sphere. He texted Sachiko, telling her everything that had happened today. To his surprise, Sachiko warned him to stay away from Tekashi. Namaru had only scratched the surface of Mount Murakami's secrets, and he had no idea how deep they truly went. Recently, many outsiders had been coming to the town at the base of Mount Murakami, and the villagers were on high alert. They knew these people had come with ill intentions. The next day, Sayuri unexpectedly received a call from Masami. Masami told her that he was safe and had chosen to stay voluntarily. He urged Sayuri to leave immediately, warning that this place didn't belong to her or the other outsiders. A storm was coming. After the death of the construction company president, another official was murdered, this time in front of witnesses, killed by a black sphere. It wouldn't be long before word of the black sphere and superpowers spread across the entire city, but Namaru had no idea about any of this. When Sayuri returned, Namaru eagerly demonstrated his new abilities to her, but Sayuri wasn't happy at all. She suspected that the person who had taught Namaru to use this power might be the very same killer the police had been searching for all this time. Namaru had only been able to create simple holes before, but after meeting his clanmate Tekashi, he was finally taught the proper way to use his abilities. To thank Tekashi for his help, Namaru participated in a skills workshop that Tekashi organized. Namaru assumed that the event would be filled with people like them, superpowered individuals, but to his surprise, only he and Tekashi were out of the ordinary. Namaru's task was to twist out a space sphere and then shatter a mannequin head. The moment the model's head hit the ground, the audience's pens fell to the ground in shock, and the audience was silent. After a long pause, they erupted into thunderous applause. This was the first time Namaru had ever been shown such respect and recognition by so many people. After the event, Namaru even received a generous payment. Namaru was incredibly excited, unaware that he was merely being used by others. Tekashi was working with the event organizers as a partner. Every time the event ended, Tekashi received a large share of the profits. That's why he had gone to such lengths to find Namaru and teach him, because Namaru was the only remaining descendant of Murakami in the world. He possessed immense power in his bloodline, he just didn't know how to control it. Tekashi wanted to exploit Namaru to make a lot of money. From that day on, Tekashi arranged multiple events for Namaru every day. Namaru had to shatter different objects in front of various audiences. Sometimes it was a mirror, other times, a refrigerator. Everyone clapped, except for Namaru's friend Tomoko, who didn't move. Tomoko had already overheard Tekashi and the others' conversations, so she knew that Namaru was being exploited. Seeing that Namaru remained in the dark, Tomoko quickly took the recording she had made and played it for Namaru, realizing that Tekashi was only using him as a cash cow. Namaru immediately confronted Tekashi. When Tekashi didn't deny it, Namaru decided to part ways with him. This kind of power shouldn't just be used for performances, it should be used for something more meaningful. But Namaru hasn't figured out what he's going to do. He wanted to text Sachiko and ask for her opinion, but in the end, he couldn't bring himself to send it. Sachiko was from Mount Murakami, and everything she did was for the sake of the mountain, but she didn't fully support Namaru returning, because once he came back, he would have to bear a heavy responsibility. Mount Murakami was far from peaceful. Many outsiders had their eyes on the superpowered individuals of the mountain, and even Mr. Yoriyuki, the most powerful among them, had aligned himself with outsiders. Mr. Yoriyuki was the one who killed the construction company president and the official. He was hired by a powerful figure in the city. But Mr. Yoriyuki wasn't acting for money. What he wanted was for the big shot to stop keeping an eye on Mount Murakami. Whenever he found out the boss was making moves behind his back, Mr. Yoriyuki would send a little warning. Bullets are no match for a space sphere. Mr. Yoriyuki's space spheres moved at will, and the boss was left speechless by the sheer terror of his power. But Yoriyuki slowly took off his hat, revealing his true form to the boss. He had 8-pack abs on his hands, and his fingers were twice as long as a normal person's. As a member of the Morakami clan, Yoriyuki was born with the ability to use space spheres, and he had yet to meet a worthy opponent. Mr. Yoriyuki was a member of the Morakami clan, and the massive red gemstone on his forehead was proof of his power. The larger the gemstone on his forehead, the larger the space spheres he could create. Aside from Mr. Yoriyuki, there were a few others in the Morakami clan who had abilities. One was the unreliable Tekashi, another was the current clan leader, and the last was a college senior named Namaru. Namaru was the last to learn how to use this power, so the gemstone on his forehead was only the size of a pimple. One day, Namaru saw a child trapped in a car. Without thinking, he immediately summoned a space sphere in front of everyone, and then, the child was rescued successfully. But Namaru didn't stay at the scene. He quickly left before the paramedics arrived, but his face had already been captured by a bystander's camera. Soon, the story of a mysterious power saving a child was being reported by all the major media outlets. When Tekashi heard about this, he was furious. Namaru used to be his cash cow, but now he was using that power to save people for free. To stop Namaru from continuing down this foolish path, Tekashi began building his own reputation. He used space spheres to smash large holes in various places, then posted dirt about those locations online, making people see him as a vigilante avenger delivering justice. His followers grew even more devoted to him. Tekashi's plan worked, and he quickly overshadowed Namaru, but he caused so much trouble that even Mr. Yoriyuki heard of his name. Mr. Yoriyuki is now working for a big man, and he can't allow Tekashi to influence him, so he decides to go and see Tekashi. Meanwhile, the villagers of Mount Morakami were also discussing Tekashi. They were worried that Tekashi was on the verge of exposing the Morakami clan's superpowers to the world. The clan leader asked Masami to come up with a plan. Masami spent the first half of his life living in the city. It wasn't until he learned about his true heritage that he gave everything up and returned to his hometown. He suggested that Tekashi's sister, Sachiko, be the one to bring Tekashi back. If Sachiko couldn't handle it alone, she should take a few villagers with her. After arriving in Tokyo, Sachiko immediately sought out Namaru for help, as only Namaru knew where Tekashi was now. Unfortunately, even after they found Tekashi, he refused to leave with them. Tekashi grew so irritated by Sachiko's constant nagging that he even considered attacking her. It wasn't Tekashi's doing. He walked to the window to investigate and saw a familiar figure. Of all the people in the clan, the one person Tekashi feared most was Mr. Yoriyuki. When he heard Mr. Yoriyuki call for him to come downstairs, Tekashi hurried down to meet him. Mr. Yoriyuki had come to take Tekashi away, but Tekashi's followers were shouting that he was not allowed to leave, which made Yoriyuki have to give these people some deterrence. A huge chunk of the building was sliced away. If it had been a person, the result would have been unimaginable. Mr. Yoriyuki told the foolish followers that the space sphere ability was tied to bloodlines. Ordinary people could spend their entire lives trying to learn it and never master even a fraction of it. Seeing that Namaru, a descendant of Murakami, was also present, Mr. Yoriyuki considered eliminating him. Fortunately, Sachiko stepped in front of Namaru just in time, and Mr. Yoriyuki spared him. Namaru was shaken. He had never encountered anyone so powerful and had no idea where the hostility toward him came from. Sachiko isn't worried about Tekashi, who was taken away. Because Tekashi was so clever, he would align himself with Mr. Yoriyuki and stop causing any more trouble. But then Tekashi, like Yoriyuki-san, would be violating the ancestral rule of the Murakami clan. Their ancestors had decreed that the clan's powers were never to leave Mount Murakami and that outsiders should never know about the superpowers. Yet, both of these rules had been completely broken by now. Even Namaru wanted to use his powers in the city. He planned to open a waste disposal company, thinking that with his abilities, he could easily eliminate any amount of trash. Namaru thought this was a great idea, but Sachiko strongly disagreed. In an attempt to change his mind, she went so far as to unbutton her shirt. He stretched out his hands and conjured a black sphere outside the window, a sphere that could devour everything. In the next second, killing someone was as easy as moving a finger. This immense power was unique to the Murakami clan. Mr. Yoriyuki was the most powerful superhuman in the Murakami clan, but he abandoned his family and came to the city to work for a powerful boss. No one knew what he was thinking, not even Tekashi, the person closest to him. Though Mr. Yoriyuki raised Tekashi, Tekashi didn't really understand him. All he knew was that Mr. Yoriyuki had been his mother's ex-boyfriend and had never gotten over her. Tekashi's mother, Yukiko, was from a branch of the Murakami clan. The Murakami family believed Yukiko was unworthy of the main family's Yoriyuki, so they forcibly separated them. Later, Yukiko followed the family's arrangements, married, and had children. Mr. Yoriyuki volunteered to become Tekashi's teacher and even took him to the main family for training. Unfortunately, Tekashi's father was deeply insecure. He saw no pride in the situation, only shame. He often humiliated Tekashi and even questioned whether Tekashi and his sister Sachiko were really his children. As a young boy, Tekashi took out his anger on his sister Sachiko. He would close his eyes and summon a space sphere, leaving Sachiko's back scarred and pockmarked. Even though Sachiko grew up, the scars remained, but Sachiko didn't hate Tekashi because she knew he was also a victim. 10 years ago, the rift between Tekashi and his father grew deeper. One night, Sachiko heard a loud commotion outside. She saw her father lying on the ground and Tekashi standing there with a horrified expression. It seemed Tekashi had finally lost control and attacked his father. Though Tekashi tried to argue that he didn't do it, the jewel on the back of his hand betrayed him. It was the sign of having used his superpowers too much. The next second, their mother, Yukiko, took the blame for Tekashi. She told him to leave the family immediately, while she stayed behind to face the consequences. Not long after, their father died, and Yukiko went up the mountain to atone for her sins. Before leaving, Yukiko asked Sachiko to bring Mr. Yoriyuki to her. By then, Mr. Yoriyuki had completely changed. He had used his powers so much that he no longer looked human. Mr. Yoriyuki followed Sachiko to the mountain to see Yukiko, but Yukiko soon disappeared from this world. Yoriyuki-san was so devastated that he left the Murakami family and never came back. Mr. Yoriyuki was once the most powerful member of the family, but now he had abandoned them and was causing havoc in the outside world. Sachiko told Namaru everything because Namaru was the only remaining heir of the Murakami family. His untapped power could potentially surpass even Mr. Yoriyuki's. He might be the only one who could stop Mr. Yoriyuki. Mr. Yoriyuki had completely lost control. Today, he destroys cars on the ground. Tomorrow, airplanes in the sky. The entire city was in a state of panic. And yet, all of this was only the beginning. Tomoko suspected that Mr. Yoriyuki was behind all of this, so she teamed up with a police officer to track him. Unfortunately, it wasn't long before they were captured by the big boss's man. They were thrown in front of Mr. Yoriyuki. Though Mr. Yoriyuki had no interest in these small fry, Tekashi immediately recognized Tomoko. He decided to warn Namaru because he was growing more confused about what Mr. Yoriyuki was planning. A giant black sphere loomed in the sky. Namaru knew that only Mr. Yoriyuki could create a space sphere that large. The sphere was the size of a soccer field. Was Mr. Yoriyuki sending it into the city to destroy the world? Half of a building was sliced off by the black sphere. People who witnessed the scene realized the danger and fled without looking back. What kind of terrifying power could rival modern military technology? While everyone else was running for their lives, one person was making his way toward the building. Namaru, like Mr. Yoriyuki, possessed this same superpower. Namaru's ancestor, Morakami, had once single-handedly killed 3,000 enemies. Namaru had never seen that battle, but at that moment, it felt as if he had been transported to the past. Namaru couldn't understand what was happening, and on the rooftop, Tekashi couldn't understand Mr. Yoriyuki's motives either. What was Mr. Yoriyuki trying to do? Why was he causing mass panic in the city? Was he tired of living and ready to end the world? Hundreds of people had already died in the building. Since Mr. Yoriyuki had attacked innocent people, there was no doubt he would continue his killing spree. Sachiko was frustrated when she heard the news. If only her mother were still alive. Mr. Yoriyuki had always listened to her mother, and it was her mother's death that had caused Mr. Yoriyuki to become the way he was. Sachiko wanted to stop Mr. Yoriyuki. Namaru felt the same. He even tried to become the window opener. In his dreams, he fell into an abyss, and if he could just open that window, he would gain incredible power. But every time, Namaru came so close, only to fall short. It frustrated him. When he comes home that day, Namaru realizes that the lock on his door has a big hole melted in it. Namaru thought it was Mr. Yoriyuki coming to kill him, but to his surprise, it was Tekashi. Tekashi says that Mr. Yoriyuki wants to put an end to nightmares, and to do so, he creates nightmares for everyone. Tekashi could no longer go along with him, but he was too afraid to oppose Mr. Yoriyuki directly, so he turned to Namaru for help. Tekashi asked Namaru to pass on a message to Sachiko, apologizing for how he had wronged her in the past. It sounded a lot like a final farewell. Namaru sensed something was wrong. He feared Tekashi might do something reckless, but before Namaru could ask further, Tekashi gave him another piece of news. Tomoko had fallen into the hands of the big boss behind Mr. Yoriyuki. Tekashi gave Namaru the address and told him to rescue Tomoko himself. Now, Namaru had no time to worry about Tekashi's situation. The next day, Namaru took the map and went to find Tomoko. Tomoko and the police officer were tied up, and the boss's men were preparing to kill them. At that moment, Namaru conjured a space sphere. He used the sphere to lure the assassins away before going in to rescue them. However, there was more than one assassin, and soon Namaru was discovered. One of the assassins had a gun, and Namaru froze in fear, unable to move. Thankfully, the police officer suddenly tackled the assassin, giving Namaru a chance to fight back. Namaru wants to make a bigger space ball. If he unleashed the sphere, the assassin would be killed for sure. Seeing this, Tomoko immediately shouted for Namaru to stop. Namaru had never killed anyone before. He shouldn't stain his hands with blood. Namaru snapped awake, and the space sphere crashed into the wall. The assassin's life was spared. Namaru successfully rescued Tomoko and the police officer. Unfortunately, the officer now regarded Namaru with fear, as though he were some kind of monster. Namaru has mixed feelings. He wanted to explain that he wasn't like Mr. Yoriyuki, that they weren't working together, but the explanation seemed weak. After all, to those who didn't know the truth, anyone with superpowers was terrifying. Mr. Yoriyuki, on the other hand, was already on the brink of destruction. He refused to work for the boss anymore, and after leaving, he caused an even greater disaster. Has the sun risen? No, it was the ground that had collapsed. 20,000 square meters of land had been wiped out overnight. The gaping black hole looked like the fanged mouth of a giant beast, ready to swallow everything in its path. All the major news channels were reporting the incident, urging people to stay indoors. Special forces had already been deployed to deal with Mr. Yoriyuki. When Namaru saw the news, he panicked. He and Mr. Yoriyuki were from the same clan, and he feared that Mr. Yoriyuki's actions would implicate the Morakami clan. Namaru quickly gathered Sayuri and the others and headed to Morakami village. The villagers revered Mr. Yoriyuki, as he was the most powerful member of the clan, but they dared not oppose Namaru. Namaru was a direct descendant of Lord Morakami, so they decided to take him to meet the current clan leader. How they would deal with Mr. Yoriyuki would be decided after consulting the leader. What they didn't expect was that Mr. Yoriyuki had already arrived ahead of them, despite knowing that the special forces were hunting him. Mr. Yoriyuki still returned to the village with Tekashi. It seemed he intended to drag the entire clan down with him. The clan leader believed that Mr. Yoriyuki had lost his mind by deliberately leading the special forces to the village. Mr. Yoriyuki was not only endangering himself and Tekashi but also putting all the clan's superpowered members at risk. The clan leader and his servants became casualties, but Namaru and the others, still on their way, had no idea what had happened. Namaru and Sachiko were discussing what to say when they met the clan leader, unaware that the leader had already fallen to the special forces' bullets. Mr. Yoriyuki and Tekashi narrowly escaped. The two of them slipped out of the room, and even though they were cornered by another squad of special forces, they managed to fight their way out together. Unfortunately, Mr. Yoriyuki wanted to take a shortcut, so he summoned a series of black spheres to block the road. He thought this would stop the pursuers, but instead, it only caused them to launch a frenzied counterattack. Sachiko, standing by the door, heard gunshots. What she didn't know was that the bullets had struck her brother. Tekashi collapsed, riddled with bullets. When the villagers and Namaru rushed in, all they saw were the bodies of the special forces and the dying clan leader. With his final breath, the clan leader spoke Mr. Yoriyuki's name, then passed away with regret. The villagers were consumed with grief. Namaru felt responsible for protecting everyone, so he decided to go after Mr. Yoriyuki himself. Sachiko, worried about Tekashi, insisted on going with him, but by that time, Mr. Yoriyuki was already fleeing up the mountain with Tekashi. Along the way, Tekashi couldn't hold on any longer, and Mr. Yoriyuki prepared to summon a black sphere to give him a quick death. Tekashi died. The black sphere was no longer needed, and Mr. Yoriyuki quietly lowered his arm. Meanwhile, Namaru and the others followed the trail of Special Forces bodies up the mountain. However, they didn't find Mr. Yoriyuki, only Tekashi's lifeless body. Sachiko couldn't believe her eyes. Even though Tekashi hadn't treated her well, he was still her only brother. Sachiko was devastated, but Namaru knew that Tekashi's and the clan leader's deaths were only the beginning. If Mr. Yoriyuki wasn't stopped, the entire clan could be wiped out. Every night, Sachiko had the same dream. She dreamed of wandering aimlessly, but in the next second, she stepped into nothingness and plunged into an abyss. The abyss was endless, vast and empty, as if the entire world had dissolved into nothingness. Sachiko kept falling. She didn't know how long it had been, but eventually, she saw someone besides herself. Desperately, she reached out to grab the person's hand. The hand was terrifyingly large, but suddenly, Namaru pulled Sachiko back just in time. Sachiko had been telling Namaru about her dream, but she had almost sunk too deeply into it to return. For years, Sachiko had this recurring dream. She knew that if she could just grasp those hands, she could become the window opener, but Namaru didn't want Sachiko to take the risk. What if opening the window meant entering the world of the dead? The clan had been in turmoil lately. Mr. Yoriyuki, the most powerful among them, had intentionally led a large squad of special forces to the village. The clan leader was killed, and Sachiko's brother, Tekashi, was dead as well. Fearing that Mr. Yoriyuki would implicate the other superpowered members of the clan, Sachiko's grandmother quickly hid Namaru away. Namaru wasn't just a superhuman, he was also the heir to the clan. Nothing could happen to him, so for the time being, Namaru had to stay at Sachiko's house. But the very next day, several police officers forcefully broke in. If Sachiko hadn't gotten Namaru out in time, he might have been captured by the authorities. Mr. Yoriyuki seemed intent on destroying the world, so it was possible the police would go after all of the Morakami clan's superhumans. Sachiko's concern wasn't unfounded. However, Namaru didn't want to keep hiding. He planned to speak with the townspeople and rally them to help him bring Mr. Yoriyuki out of hiding. As long as they handed over Mr. Yoriyuki, the clan would be safe. The townspeople had an almost blind reverence for Mr. Yoriyuki, and no matter how much the police pressured them, they refused to give any information. Fortunately, just as tensions reached a boiling point, Namaru arrived at the scene. He not only admitted to the police that he was a superpowered individual, but he also demonstrated his abilities in front of everyone. Namaru summoned a black sphere capable of destroying everything, but the sphere didn't fall on the police or the townspeople. He only wanted to show that he had the same power as Mr. Yoriyuki, yet would never use it the way Mr. Yoriyuki had. After easing the police's fears, Namaru turned to the townspeople, urging them to join him. If they don't hand over Mr. Yoriyuki soon, the Morakami clan will probably be wiped out. Gradually, Namaru's words began to sway the townspeople, but they weren't the ones who could make that decision. Since the clan leader's death, Masami had been handling clan matters, so they needed to consult with Masami first. Masami also supported the plan to find Mr. Yoriyuki, as Mr. Yoriyuki's ambitions were far greater than they appeared. Masami had spent months researching and had uncovered that the Morakami clan's crest depicting a magpie held the secret of Mount Murakami's fate. At first, the magpie on the crest was actually two hands. The larger hand was on top, and the smaller hand was below, as if the larger hand was giving something to the smaller one. But over time, people gradually began to see the crest as a magpie. More importantly, the Morakami clan held an annual Tanabata festival. Though Tanabata originated in China, this festival had nothing to do with the story of the cowherd and the weaver girl. In this context, Tanabata actually referred to 7 sunsets. Unlike ordinary mountains, Mount Murakami allowed people to see more than one sunset in a single day. If you stood at a specific angle to watch the second sunset, you would see something extraordinary. Masami told everyone that in ancient times, Mount Murakami was known as the Mountain of the Gods. Legend had it that over 1,000 years ago, a deity appeared on Mount Murakami. Since then, people had gathered on specific days, holding torches, waiting for the deity's arrival. They believed the firelight would guide the deity to them, but what they didn't realize was that this deity was actually just an alien with advanced technology. The aliens used the villagers of Mount Murakami for experiments, and as a result, some villagers gave birth to children with alien blood. Some of these children inherited the alien superpowers. Others became the window openers, people who lived every day in fear. The aliens tasked the superpowers with guarding Mount Morakami, while the window openers passed down the terror of leaving this land. The aliens wanted the villagers to protect this place for them, but for some reason perhaps the aliens found another habitable planet, or maybe their species was wiped out, the aliens disappeared, and no one had seen them on Mount Morakami for hundreds of years. Masami believed that Mr. Yoriyuki must have discovered this as well, which is why he didn't want the villagers to remain bound to this land. Mr. Yoriyuki intentionally brought in the special forces, perhaps hoping to use them to destroy Mount Morakami, freeing all the villagers in the process. Masami led Namaru and the others to Mount Morakami to wait. As soon as Mr. Yoriyuki appeared, they planned to work together to capture him. That night, Namaru asked Sachiko what she wanted to do in the future. Sachiko had been trapped on Mount Morakami for over 20 years. She said if Mount Morakami were destroyed, the first thing she would do is live in another city. Everyone dreamed of a new beginning, but they hadn't expected the special forces to follow them up the mountain. The SWAT team didn't believe in the villagers of Mount Morakami, so they tried to force Mr. Yoriyuki to come out with the lives of the villagers. Sensing trouble, Masami quickly prepared to attack. But in the next moment, Mr. Yoriyuki had infiltrated the special forces. He had been lying in wait these past few days for just this moment. The head of the special forces thought his firearms made him invincible, but he soon realized how foolish he was. With no one else in the way, Mr. Yoriyuki reveals his true purpose. He did want to destroy Mount Morakami, but in a different way. At the peak of Mount Morakami was a massive black sphere, left behind by the aliens. Mr. Yoriyuki believed that if he could merge himself with the black sphere, he could enter another world. That was how Yukiko had vanished without a trace. Everyone thought Yukiko was dead, but Mr. Yoriyuki believed she had gone to another place. All these years, he had been trying to reach her, and today, his dream was finally about to come true. Hearing Yoriyuki's words, Namaru thinks he's crazy. To save everyone's lives, Namaru led Sachiko and the others in a frantic escape from Mount Morakami. Once the black sphere fell, it would be powerful enough to destroy the entire mountain, and nothing on it would survive. Namaru and the others held each other tightly, narrowly avoiding being pulled into that terrifying force. Mr. Yoriyuki vanished. No one knew whether he had died or, as he claimed, had entered another world. After that day, the villagers of Mount Morakami were finally free. They could leave the land at last. But Sachiko, who had always wanted to leave, stayed behind. She felt that Mr. Yoriyuki's theory wasn't entirely without reason. Perhaps, in another world, Mr. Yoriyuki had finally reunited with her mother.